You're in the water loop.
Welcome to Waterloop, the podcast that explores solutions for sustainability and equity in water. I'm the host, Travis Loop. This is episode number 229, Rallying with River Network's Emerging Leaders. The River Network's Emerging Leader Award highlights rising stars at the crossroads of water and justice. Designed to boost early career professionals, the award offers recognition, confidence, and networking opportunities. At River Rally 2024 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 4 awardees shared their impactful work, the reasons for their recognition, and their successful water initiatives. This episode delves into the stories of Charles Miller, Nguyen, Kevin Jeffery, and Hira Ahmad, exploring how they are making significant strides in the water sector and championing justice through innovative solutions and community engagement. First, I spoke with Charles Miller, the policy director for the Alabama Rivers Alliance.
So my name is Charles Miller. I'm the policy director at the Alabama Rivers Alliance, and we're a statewide network in Alabama of over 100 organizations that are dedicated to protecting our state's incredibly biodiverse, over 100,000 miles of rivers and streams. Alabama is the most aquatically biodiverse state in the nation, which not a lot of folks know or would expect. So that's something we always like to highlight, but we're also really invested in bringing more groups to the table. And I think that's really illustrated by both kind of the breadth of organizations that are part of our alliance, as well as sort of the diversity within our alliance members. We are the only state where on our official state seal, we have all of the rivers on it. So it's really the river state. Most of the rivers are part of the Mobile River Basin, second largest delta in the United States, only behind the Mississippi. And the delta itself is called America's Amazon because, again, of that incredible biodiversity that exists there. And again, that's a really just powerful motivator to do the work that we do, because it's something that's so much bigger than even, not just each one of us, but even our organization and our network, and that's something that has been there long before us, and we hope to, preserve into the future as well. I'm the policy director, so that essentially means I get to deal with all the fun legal stuff, both in the legislature and with our state agencies. We do a little bit of federal work as well, but our focus, since we're a statewide organization, is definitely on Alabama. And I always tell people, I worked briefly in the Midwest, and obviously there are different issues there for sure. But I told people, if you want to come to a place where you want to do work that's really rewarding and really important, come to Alabama, because we have that aquatic biodiversity. We have, a history of kind of discrimination that we're still working to address in the water infrastructure space. And it's also a place where a lot of that work is just super challenging, because so much of what we're trying to overcome has just been there for so long. Yeah. That was back in 2021, and I was in law school at the time at the University of Alabama, and I was on our board. And really what I wanted to share with River Network, I'll be totally honest, and Carly's going to overhear this, but I applied. It was a self-nomination process, and I was like, I'll just apply because maybe I'll get a scholarship to River Rally. And I got a lot more than a scholarship. I got to be part of this wonderful cohort of people that River Network has put together. And so a lot of our work at the time, and we're continuing to do this, and I think we've made great strides even just in the 3 years since then, was, again, about deepening and broadening our network in Alabama. And so that was about bringing in non-traditional groups, working on things other than kind of that traditional outdoorsy conservation stuff, and we've made great strides on that. We have a full-time staff member who dedicates a lot of her time to clean water infrastructure work, and that's a huge thing, not only for us organizationally, but for our state to have somebody who is dedicated to that work, because not everywhere has that. And it's it's been great to see just the strides that we've made as an organization with that focus on, bringing in kind of the more human side, the more community side of the work. Like in policy work, especially if you're working in a state that's not had like a long-term emphasis on conservation, a lot of times the positive stuff is really small and may not like appear super positive at first, but we have really started to emphasize our work in the legislature a lot more. And so we've done a fantastic job. We have a full-time lobbyist who we contract with. I'm down there a lot, and we're really starting to, I think, make an impact in terms of people know who we are, they take what we say seriously, and they're starting to think about these things in the way that we need them to. Like, we're starting to move that needle. And obviously, like I said, that's a super long-term process, but just being down there, being seen, and in a state that may not always have like the instinct to go for the conservation angle, it's, I think, super helpful for us to just be there and be like, look, we have solutions, we're reasonable people, you can talk with us, and nobody's going to scream at you. Because we have a really powerful environmental constituency in Alabama, and we've been really good in the past decade at stopping bad things from happening, and like we're getting to the point where the needle is moving, so we're starting to like be in a position where we can make good things happen, and that's super rewarding.
Yeah.
The way I've always thought about it with water stuff is like, I think the policy work in water and lobbying and any of the things that you would do with water are just fundamentally different than sort of your ordinary coalition building, because it literally affects everybody. So for at least me, and I think for our organization, a lot of that pitch is just find how these people are connected to water, because that they are. That they love a river, or that maybe they drink bottled water because they're concerned about the quality of their tap water. So find that connection, find what they care about water, and meet them there, and then you can take them on a journey that will like open the whole world of water to them.
Next, I sat down with Nguyen, who managed educational content for California Trout.
My name is Nguyen. I use they or she pronouns, and I work for the Peninsula Open Space Trust as the Community Events Manager. And the POST, also known as POST, and POST mission is to protect open spaces for the benefit of all, and that includes wildlife and people. And I love my job because I get to create community events that are free and open to the public, that bring people to nature and nature to people. This is in California, so in the Bay Area. Our events are really fun, and at the core of it is to really just break down any barriers to provide people access to nature, equitable access to be specific. And these events can be as fun and large as the large film festival, like the Wild and Scenic Film Festival and the Representation Matters Film Festival, to smaller hikes and walks focused on affinity groups. The affinity groups I work with are the LGBTQIA plus community, women, as well as BIPOC. One of my favorite events that we've hosted is Queers of a Feather, which is an LGBTQ birding event, and the community loves flocking towards this event, and they come from as far as Sacramento to the Bay Area, which is like a 2-hour drive, and they come specifically just to be in community with other queer people. One of the event I just finished with before I came to River Rally is Nature Loteria, which is Loteria is a Mexican bingo game, and we created a whole new set of cards based on nature themes. So we had like flora, fauna, insects even, and people would just play bingo, gathered at a brewery, and it was a great way to engage a diverse community and connect them, bring nature to an urban setting. And so you don't have to go very far away to drive to Yosemite or even like a park that's 2 hours away. It's in your backyard, it's in your local park, and it could even be at your local brewery. I was nominated and awarded the 2020 Emerging Leader during the pandemic. And that was because I was working at California Trout, or Cal Trout, which is an organization dedicated to protecting fish and rivers in California. Specifically, the big effort there was removing 5 big dams in California. And which are I guess I'll name them, the Klamath Dam, the Ringe Dam, Searsville Dam, Scott Dam, and Matilaha. And so while I was also working in rivers, I was part of the Sunrise Movement, which is a movement of young people dedicated to fighting the climate crisis. And so when the fires were really happening, I remember waking up with orange sky and just seeing the sun totally blocked out by smoke. And I couldn't breathe. I have asthma, and I know a lot of my friends and family were affected. That really galvanized me and my community and my friends to show up and support. And so I remember when the fires and the smoke was so bad, our community rallied to do mutual aid, and we came together to build box fans for people who didn't have air filters at the time, where air filters were not readily available. You couldn't get them at the store; they were all sold out. And we just jerry-rigged some, like a box fan with one of those HEPA filters and taped them up and delivered them for free to the community so we can keep each other safe. I also remember just coming together, doing actions to provide a lot more visibility to what we were trying to fight for. And one of the biggest campaigns that I was really proud to work on is the Civilian Climate Corps, which passed last year. It's now known as the American Climate Corps, but it promises good green jobs to anyone who wants it, dedicated to fighting the climate crisis, reducing carbon emissions, and really enabling a just transition. 2020 was 4 years ago. 4 years, a lot can happen. I had a lot more energy, and when I was younger, my motto was turn your passion into action. I still live by that a little bit, but I was really go, 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 and I really felt the urgency that climate change really plays in our life. We're seeing more and more natural disasters. We're seeing increasing hotter summers every single year, cold and crazy storms and flooding, and I really, there's so much urgency that comes to this work, and there was a point where I just hit complete burnout, where I was just so detached, disassociated, and no longer had the energy I needed to keep going, and that's just really sad. And I could see it happening in my friend group, my communities, and other organizers who give so much. And something I've learned and seen is the same energy that drives activists and people in the nonprofit world protecting water and land is the same energy that burns us out. And what's important is to find balance. And so I've taken a lot of learnings from teachers, books, podcasts, all these things that tell me the same thing, which is, rest is important. Audre Lorde has this great quote where she says that rest is not an act of self-indulgence, it's a matter of self-preservation. And that I feel like I live by a lot, because I feel so guilty when I'm not doing anything, this narrative I'm lazy or I should be more productive. But I've realized that's the internalized capitalism within me and the extractive narratives that play. And it's like an act of undoing that and learning that I've dedicated my whole career into protecting the environment, and I also need to rest so that I can keep going, because we're playing the long game. It's like a movement that we're working with and not this one moment. And so at River Rally, I presented on burnout. Let's talk about burnout and how to heal from it. And we shared as a community how we are all experiencing burnout. This is not an isolated event. And also shared ways on how we can take care of each other. Because the solution to burnout is actually not self-care. It's caring for each other and also undoing the systemic issues that capitalism has in play. So really just balance is what I've learned now is taking the energy that I've had in the past and applying it to this new mature lens that I have now, and also sharing that with other people, because I know I'm not alone in feeling burnt out.
Then I had a conversation with Kevin Jeffery, the creator of the Blue Index and a landscape planner for the city of Chula Vista.
My name is Kevin Jeffery. I am a landscape planner at the city of Chula Vista. Chula Vista, California is the second largest town in San Diego County, second to San Diego, and I work in the Development Services Department. Development Services Department for a municipality probably handles development, like if you want to build a bridge or a town or a road or a grocery store, whatever, you have to submit and work with the codes of the city, and they need to review them in terms of meeting policies and standards, right? So what I do is I look at the landscape portions of those plans, the outdoor portions. In California, there's a lot of water-tight regulations, and how it intersects with my job is the the level of water you use to water your plants, right? And so I look at a lot of those, and I also help develop new parks, and anything that's outdoors. I tell people anything that's pushing dirt, I want to look at the plants. Are you using the water that you are using? Are you using it responsibly? And so, for example, all the plants outside, they have a number to how much gallons they use, like water. Like this tree uses this much gallons down to the minute. And do the math. Here's how many plants you have. This is how much water you should be using. Why aren't you using less? You're supposed to be using less. And so that's what I look at. It's construction documents are construction documents. They're a little detailed oriented, and they always try to slide things through. And my job is to make sure they don't, and try to do it to the best of my ability. Now, obviously, municipalities have their own agenda. We're what we call a developer-friendly city. And so I try to work within those bounds. Really excited to be not only emerging leader, but one of their inaugural emerging leader. And it was through this idea, this water research project called Blue Index that I developed and implemented a case study for in Austin, Texas. Blue Index is a way to quantify people's emotional responses to water. So we're sitting by water right now. Like, let me ask you, how does that make you feel looking at this water? What's like one word you describe to?
Yeah, I mean, immediately just peaceful.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically, I would try to quantify and correlate people's responses that you just gave me and boil it down to what we're just talking about, people who actually push dirt and care about numbers and dollars and cents. And so I try to bridge that qualitative data of the emotionals, the feel-goods, into something quantitative that we can actually build a bridge with or build an urban waterscape, such as we're sitting down right now. Outcomes that we're able to develop from the Austin study that we recommended to the city is think of it as a bang for buck ratio, like how much money is our happiness worth, right? Since you're a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of decision makers only kind of care about perceptions, right? Not so much the science. It's just my opinion. And so what I did is I developed a method to gather people's perceptions of the water. And what do you know? It's the same thing the scientists are saying. It's not good. Something's not right. And so if they care about perceptions, here's 1,800 of your voting constituents that are saying something's not right. Is that a message that can translate? So it's just, that's been our hypothesis at least, right? So one of the ways I do that is if it cost $1 million to maintain this bridge, but my study says it only makes you feel like 2 out of 10 happy. $1 million by 2, is that like, think of that bang for buck ratio. Whereas there's places where, I mean, even if there were trash cans, they probably weren't picking them up. It's like a Zen paradise, right? It's like no one maintains this place, but it makes people feel so great, so happy, you know? So how do you, those different contrast scenarios of urban waterscapes, how do we learn the lessons? And so we can better maintain and make better urban waterscapes. Chula Vista has great policies on parks in terms of for every 3,000 people, there should be an acre of park. For every 95 houses, there should be an acre of park. And so I like how, at least in the newer part of the city, there's so many new parks, right? And so knowing what I've known in my own professional and personal water advocacy career, art, even the perception of water or the perception of nature through art, nothing's going to beat the real thing, but if you can mix art into outdoor spaces, it's really helpful and it's really impactful, you know, like making. In my instance, there's just empty land. Like we're literally building a town out of the ground. And so I always tell people all the time, you're not making houses, you're making people's lives, right? You're making memories. So I need you to keep that in mind when you're making this thing. Like when you're making this school, when you're making this road, and they're like, oh, I get it. It's not just like, check. I'm waiting for me to sell all these houses. It's like, no, you're selling somebody's life right now. So that's kind of what I try to fold in my Blue Index work into the work I do in a way that they can hear.
Last, I talked with Hira Ahmad, who recently graduated from the University of Michigan and is a fellow at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
So my name is Hira Ahmad. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a student at the University of Michigan School of Environment and Sustainability. I just graduated with my master's in Environment and Sustainability, and some of the work that I kind of was spending a lot of time on that got me to River Rally this year was my master's project, where we worked with a media organization, Great Lakes Now, and collaborated with them to create a toolkit for equitable media engagement with communities affected by environmental justice issues. So we really wanted to work in collaboration with community organizations, with media organizations, as well as with experts and funders in the field of journalism and community engagement to really understand what do communities affected by environmental justice issues need from media, and what do they view that relationship to look like moving forward, especially as we're really at a point in time where local journalism is so needed and is so valuable to really supporting community change and community kind of driven movements. The toolkit is really designed for media to utilize, particularly smaller media organizations, local journalism, and it's an opportunity for them to really utilize it as a customizable resource for their organization. So the toolkit has lots of kind of pull-out quotes which provide extra context that a media organization could use in a grant application, for example, to justify funding for more community engagement efforts. But the kind of base of the toolkit is really a set of goals, and those goals basically have strategies underneath them and then corresponding actions. So the workbook, which is an addition to the toolkit, is basically a place for organizations or individuals to track what goals they want to implement in their organization or as an individual, and then choosing strategies and actions that make sense for them based on resource and capacity level. So something different that we really wanted to do was organize the toolkit based on resource and capacity, because that's something that we heard from a lot of media organizations, that there's so much work that they would love to do and so many initiatives that they would like to take on, but they're really limited by resources and capacity. So being able to provide recommendations for equitable engagement, whether your organization is at a low resource capacity level at the moment, or whether you have a ton of funding to do more initiatives, we wanted to provide those recommendations based on that capacity. Great Lakes Now is a regional media organization. They operate obviously throughout the Great Lakes, and they were really interested in doing more environmental justice driven media in their coverage. And so in order to do that, they wanted to make sure that they're centering equity in how they engage with communities and individuals that have been affected by environmental injustice. So that's when they came to the University of Michigan and asked for a project team to really look into this for their organization, but also to create a tool that they could widely disperse across the Great Lakes and across the nation for media organizations to utilize. So they worked in close, collaboration with us throughout this project, and basically making sure that, we were, talking to the right individuals and making sure that, we created a tool that was very usable. When I think about equitable engagement, I'm really talking about when we talk with community members or any individuals, making sure that, recognizing their time is sacred, their stories are sacred, and keeping, that sense of care and love in all the conversations that we have with individuals, particularly those who have been, historically marginalized and have, years and years of distrust, particularly within that relationship between media and communities. So making sure to keep that care and that love as a central kind of portion is really what I view equitable engagement to be. I just graduated. I'm actually moving to Chicago at the end of the month. I'm going to be starting a fellowship with the EPA in Region 5 in Chicago. So I'm very excited to actually be continuing a lot of the community engagement work that I started out during this master's project, and really doing that as well at the EPA with the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative.
You're in the water loop.